Hi people, welcome to the Run Testers and to our head-to-head between two of HOKA's big hitting do-it-all daily trainers. In this video we're going to pitch the massive stacked carbon plated HOKA Skyward X up against the HOKA Mach 6. Now both shoes are built to bring comfort and efficiency to our daily miles, but they take very different approaches to deliver that. So which one of these shoes is best and which one of them is going to suit your running better? Watch on to find out in our HOKA Skyward X versus HOKA Mach 6 review. Some quick details then, starting with the stacks. In the men's shoe, the HOKA Skyward X comes in at a whopping 48mm in the heel with 43mm in the forefoot. That's a 46 and 41 in the women's for a 5mm drop overall. That's bigger than the Asics Nova Blast 4, the Asics Gel Nimbus 26 and the On Cloud Monster Hyper. In fact, only the Adidas Prime X2 Strung Sports a higher volume midsole than that shoe. The HOKA Mach 6, by contrast, packs 35mm in the heel, 30mm in the forefoot in the women's, with 37, 32 in the men's, also for a 5mm drop. The Skyward X weighs in at 11 ounces or 313 grams in a UK 8.5 test shoe size. That's considerably heavier than the Mach 6 at 8.1 ounces or 230 grams. On price, the Skyward X costs £185 or $225. The Mach 6 are a big chunk cheaper at £140 or $140 in the US. Let's give you a quick shoe comparison and starting with the midsoles. Now, HOKA's new Skyward X Super Trainer, it's big, it's bold, it deploys super shoe tech in a bid to deliver comfort and effort reduction in an everyday shoe. The midsole combines a wedge of PEBA foam plus a convex bowed carbon fibre plate for cushion spring and to improve efficiency. That's wrapped in a supercritical EVA frame, a sort of suspension system if you want to add stability. The Skyward X's landing platform, it's big and wide in the heel and in the forefoot. Minimal this shoe is not. For the more conservatively stacked Mach 6 here, HOKA swapped the ProFly Plus foam for a single layer of supercritical EVA with an early stage meta rocker. It's a combination that HOKA says creates a more responsive ride, and unlike the Skyward X, there's no plate in this shoe. Up top on the Mach 6, you've got a Creole Jacquard mesh upper. As uppers go, these are pretty light and breathable. There's medium padded heel collars here, half gusseted flat lay tongues that wrap the foot nicely. The Skyward X has a flat knit upper with has some flex. It's not quite sock-like. There's also some overlay reinforcement here in this toe box. The heel collars are pretty much the same padding as the Mach 6, but there are fat cushioned tongues here. And the HOKA Skyward X goes a little bit out more for sort of cruiser comfort without scrimping on those plush details. Flip them over and you'll see that the HOKA Mach 6's flex grooves are gone, and so is the exposed EVA foam outsole. That's been replaced by a heavier duty rubber covering here to cost a substantial portion of the outsole. The HOKA Skyward X also features a generous covering of quite thick high abrasion rubber in all those key impact areas.
So in terms of fit, I've got both these shoes in a UK size 8. That's my typical running shoe size, typically the shoe size that works best for me in HOKA shoes in general as well too. Now I will say that the Mach 6 is definitely the more narrow fitting shoe, which for me, in my kind of pretty skinny feet, has been absolutely fine. But I would add that this shoe is the only one that comes in two width kind of fit options. There's a regular version, which I've got, and also there's a wider fitting option. So if you do find it a little bit on the narrow side, there is that kind of wider fit option there for you to have a look at. On the Skyward X, only one size or one fit, and I would say naturally it's more accommodating, more comfortable in general, really telling you it's built for those kind of comfortable kind of runs ultimately, a bit more padding in the tongue, I would say a little bit more naturally roomy up front in the toes, a little bit more relaxed maybe in the midfoot compared to the Mach 6 as well too. If you want something a bit more locked in and a little bit more kind of tighter fitting in general, then that's what the Mach 6 is going to give you. I do think going true to size has been fine for me. As I said, with the Mach 6, if you do find it on the little narrow side, maybe look at going for that wider fit option. Whereas I think with the Skyward X, I think generally that fit, or going true to size in this shoe, is going to be generally fine for most people.
So when it comes to the fit of the two shoes, I've got a UK 9 in both, which is a US 9.5 with HOKA. That's my normal size for HOKA, and I do like the fit of their shoes in general because I have quite a narrow foot. They tend to have a fairly narrow style. I think the Mach is probably a little bit narrower than the Skyward, but both of them fit me really well, and I've got a good hold around the heel and midfoot. I think the heel thing, the tab on the Skyward X, goes a little bit further up than I'd like. It's got a bit more structure around the heel in general to add stability, and I prefer the slightly more relaxed fit of the Mach at the back there. But overall, I had a good fit for both of these shoes in my normal running shoe size, and that is what I would stick with.
So quick comparison on fit then. Both of these shoes come up HOKA snug. If you can see in the Mach 6 here, certainly back across the top of that kind of toe knuckle area, they're really quite snug there. There's not a huge amount of wiggle room in the toe box. There's probably just enough length, but again, they are quite a narrow fit. It's pretty standard HOKA stuff. Over into the HOKA Skyward X, it's exactly the same deal really. There's perhaps a little bit more clearance across the top of the toe box here in the Skyward X. There's about a thumb's width there up the front. When you come back, I get really sort of, you know, snug locked down across this kind of midsection here again into the sort of toe knuckle areas. There's a bit more flex maybe in the uppers here in the Skyward X. Midfoot lockdown in both shoes is pretty secure and good. And then into the heel collars, I would say these two pretty much on a par. There's nice kind of padding into the heel collars. They hold the heels nice and well. One thing to watch out for, the HOKA Skyward X heel kick does come up a bit higher. So if you have problems with this kind of rubbing into the bottom of your Achilles, that might be a consideration. I haven't had that, but it is something that you kind of notice a little bit more than on the Mach 6 here. It's marginally sort of different. But overall, I think both of these, it's classic HOKA stuff here. It is nice and snug. If you like a wider fit or you need a roomier shoe, then I would recommend going half a size up. But I like the way they feel, and I would run both of these true to size. In testing, I've logged well over 60 miles in the Mach 6. That includes an all-out 10k race where I clocked a new PB in the shoe, along with a good mix of marathon training sessions from fast intervals and fartleks to progression runs and slower, easier miles. I've run a little bit less than the HOKA Skyward X, but still more than 40 miles, including longer runs with 90 minutes on feet, slower, shorter miles, and some 10k efforts with faster segments thrown in. I've done most of my miles on road, but some off-road river piles as well. Now, I'm a fan of the Mach 6. It's a fun, light and lively, versatile, do-it-all daily trainer that's very good value for money. If you only want one shoe to cover a wide range of runs, this shoe can also take care of them all. There's not much really that it can't handle, I don't think, though it definitely has a faster, shorter sweet spot, but I think there's enough softness and protection in the midsole to cradle you on slower efforts, should you need it. Now, the Skyward X has me a little bit more confused. After more than 40 miles, I still can't quite get a handle on this shoe. On the one hand, it's got this big, soft, easy cruiser vibe with some really excellent overall comfort and a big base that makes the road disappear really nicely. On the other hand, I find it lacks a bit of stability at times. You know, the stability that I usually expect with shoes like this that I'd lace up for long, slow, easy miles. At times, that big, soft stack is somewhat too sort of wobbly and wild, and even though the midsole has energy to it when you engage it right, overall, I find the shoe a bit too big and heavy to really be a top choice for faster efforts as well. Now, I've spoken with plenty of people who absolutely love this shoe, so perhaps it's just not a design that really suits my running style. Maybe like a little shoe that's a bit more sort of direct and a bit more rocketed, a bit more sort of rocketed and responsive, really. I think I tend to go for more than these kind of big stack shoes. But to really get into the nitty-gritty of how these two shoes compare, I also did a side-by-side mile with one shoe on each foot, and this is what I found. So I've just done my side-by-side mile. I've got the Mach 6 on the left foot, I've got the Skyward X on the right foot, and the biggest thing you notice straight away is the big stack on the Skyward X. Obviously, huge, big, soft stack compared to what you have on the Mach 6, which is, you know, it's a reasonable size stack, and there is a decent amount of cushioning there, but it's much more kind of direct, and there's much more ground content, there's much more kind of feel of the road coming up from underneath. When you've got the Skyward X on your feet, it's almost like the road entirely disappears for me, and it's just, I can't quite get on with the Skyward X. I don't really know what it is. I feel like there's too much cushion. It's a bit marshmallowy. Sometimes it engages really nicely and I get that extra propulsion. And I feel like it's got energy and it's got spring. And it's got all of those things. And other times I just feel like it's so unstable underfoot that it's controlling my run and I'm not controlling it. I feel wobbly. Sometimes I feel sinky. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just not a shoe for me, but I can't quite get on with it. The Mach 6 for me, much more my kind of thing, you know, a bit more responsive. There's still good cushioning, so it does eat the road, but you're getting this kind of return from the foam that's a bit more immediate. You know, you put your foot down, wait for a little bit of sink, and then it punches back, and it's got this kind of nice clipping immediacy to it because of that. That works really nicely with the rockering, I think. The Skyward X runs a little bit flatter, like you're relying a little bit more on that foam to compress and then to propel forward, or the plate to engage and kick in. And I just don't necessarily get that every single time. I get a much more kind of reliable turnover with the Mach 6. It's just, for me, I think it's more my kind of shoe. I like things that have got a little bit more stiffness, a little bit more rocketed response, rather than the big kind of pillowy cushion sort of overdone shoes. And I think the sort of maximalist nature of the Skyward X just doesn't quite appeal to me. In terms of comfort overall on foot, you know, the way the uppers wrap and the hold and the fit and all of that, I don't think there's actually much to choose. I get pretty good disappearing feel from both of these shoes. A bit more room in the Skyward X. I'd say the Mach 6 is a bit more snug, a bit more tight. It's got that sort of classic kind of really held HOKA fit. If there's a wide option, you might want to be looking at that. But yeah, overall, I don't feel there's a difference in terms of how the foot feels in the shoe. I just think the big difference is really obviously from that massive platform versus the slightly smaller platform, and a more responsive rocket ride versus the big kind of pillowy cushion, sort of springy, sort of, you know, sink and respond kind of ride that you're supposed to get from the Skyward X.
So, comes to the run test. These are two, I'd say, daily trainers, fairly versatile daily trainers, but come in with a very different style, it's fair to say. So the Mach is, you know, the more traditional, very simple shoe, one foam, lightweight design, lots of cushioning there still, so it is still comfortable, but, you know, got a rocker, but nothing too crazy going on in the midsole, whereas the Skyward X is packed full of crazy stuff with, you know, that towering stack of foam, soft foam, bouncy foam, slotted carbon plate in there, you know, like I say, this Mach stack, cutouts, all kinds of stuff going on with the Skyward X, so they almost represent the kind of different options you have on the market these days for daily trainers, and they can be very different shoes that do, I think, quite similar jobs. So I'd use both these shoes for the same purpose, which is just ticking off daily training runs, long runs in particular. They're both really good long run shoes, I think. Both have got some speed in them. I think the Mach has a little bit more because it is the lighter shoe just in general, but you can move quite fast in the Skyward X because that big slab of foam is pretty bouncy, but because it is such a big, heavy shoe, I'd say, it doesn't really feel that conducive to running faster efforts regularly for me. So the Mach X I really like just as a simple shoe that fits really well on the foot. It feels very natural. It's the kind of shoe you pull on and it just disappears. You forget about it and you can then go and run at kind of any pace. Foam in the midsole is not spectacular. It's not particularly bouncy or exciting or anything like that, but there is a nice rocker to the shoe. The foam does a little bit of pop and it's got a nice pleasant firmness or resilience to it. That means you can push against it, and while it's comfortable, you can work against it if you're going to try and run at faster paces, and it doesn't kind of bottom out over the course of a long run or anything like that. So it's not a particularly remarkable midsole, but it is one that suits my taste, and in general the shoe just fits my taste. Like, it's the kind of shoe that I would find very comfortable for lots of easy runs, but it has a bit of versatility there as a lightweight shoe that, you know, isn't going to do the work for you like some of the shoes these days, but it is a nice shoe to run fast in because it is a lightweight shoe with a good rocker and, you know, a pretty good foam. It's just not as exciting, I say, as the Piba foam in the Skyward X, which is a lot bouncier. This is a much deeper shoe, a much bouncier shoe, and you feel that from the moment you pull it on. You've got a lot of bounce in the shoe and it doesn't really go away. So I've done a 15-mile long run in the Skyward X and I really enjoyed it, and it did feel bouncy throughout the run. It's the kind of shoe where you're going out at kind of relaxed efforts and you're going to run a little bit quicker than you maybe expect because you have got all that bounce and the plate underfoot, but it is also just nice and comfortable for all those recovery runs. It obviously really protects the body well. Good shoe to save your legs on if you're going to do lots of daily training in this and then swap to something, you know, firmer and faster for your speed sessions. They are quite distinct rides. You've got a very natural feeling ride with the Mach 6 and then you've got a very unnatural feeling ride with the Skyward X, and it probably will, a lot of this will come down to personal taste. You've got that really big bouncy feeling with this shoe, and that is fun, but it's just not necessarily something that I really crave in a shoe just for general daily training. I almost prefer the slightly more boring and natural ride of the Mach 6. So I did do a short run in both these shoes at the same time, which is not easy because of the difference in platforms and stack heights and feels, and you know, it is very different on the run for two shoes in the HOKA range. You've got that much bouncier feeling here. Like, it's a heavier shoe, the Skyward X. It doesn't feel as heavy as it is. It does run lighter than it is because it's got a pretty decent rocker. That foam is very bouncy, like I say. You move very kind of efficiently and effectively in this shoe for such a big shoe. Mach 6 has that firmer feel, just turns over really nicely, is noticeably lighter, and just, you know, feels a lot more normal on the foot for sure. And then generally you have to be a fair bit more careful where you're stepping with the Skyward X because it is that big shoe. You can catch things. It's less enjoyable to run the shoe on kind of broken up pavements, cambered pavements than the Mach 6, which obviously feels quite normal. And actually when I'm walking around in either shoe, like if I have to use them for just general use, the Mach 6 is much better for that because it is a much more normal feeling shoe underfoot. So I did a range of runs in both these shoes. I probably ended up feeling like the Mach 6 was a bit more enjoyable for me, but I do think a lot of people will love the feel of the Skyward X.
So in terms of running experience, these two shoes landed with me when I was training for London, so I was able to do similar runs with them both. I did kind of long 20-miler runs in both of these shoes. I've done some tempo running, tried to do some kind of faster sessions in them as well to get a good sense of, you know, how they can handle kind of a mixture of runs, because ultimately these are daily trainers. They're very different daily trainers. This is a kind of Mach stack kind of daily trainer, putting a lot of foam underneath your foot, but also giving you things like a carbon fiber plate and a feeling that this is a shoe that you can run a little bit quicker in. This doesn't have a plate, but does have that kind of, you know, signature kind of meta rocker that you get in HOKA shoes. Obviously lighter as well too, and as we know from the Mach series, can be a shoe that you can potentially run a bit quicker in, maybe racing as well. Now, I'd say the first thing that kind of stands out for me in terms of how these shoes compare, obvious one being the weight. This is the lighter of the two shoes. Now, this is heavier. I do think it handles the weight better than some other kind of Mach Stack Super Trainer shoes. But if you are looking for the lighter shoe, a noticeably lighter shoe, then that's the shoe that's going to get you that kind of lighter feel, and that is the Mach 6. And ultimately, I think the midsoles are very interesting because I think there's qualities that I like in both of them. I think with the Mach 6 is very much in keeping with the Mach series. It is, that the midsole is a little bit softer feeling, a little bit more forgiving, but it still has that kind of firm and responsive edge. And coupled with that weight, the kind of rocker that you're getting in here, it feels like a nicer shoe, and it kind of promotes you to run a little bit quicker in this shoe. Now, I have done a longer, easier runs in this shoe, and it's been comfortable enough to do that, but I do think the emphasis is on trying to get kind of to quickly move through those transitions in this shoe, and that's ultimately what I felt in this shoe. Now, in the Skyward X, I said it's the heavier of the two shoes, but I do think it handles that weight pretty well. And I think what you're getting in the midsole is still something that offers something that can handle some slightly quicker running. Now, I wouldn't want to do speed work in it, and when I've tried to run at my kind of quicker pacing, it's not really been a shoe that's really been conducive to that. But when I've tried to do kind of moderate paces, up tempo, up to kind of 7:30-minute mile pace, which is pretty up tempo for me, it's felt absolutely fine. It hasn't felt cumbersome or kind of awkward to do that. And I think that's really testament to what you're getting in the midsole and how that midsole was built. So I do think it is a shoe, definitely excels better compared to the Mach 6 on the easier, more comfortable long runs. But I do think if you want to pick the pace up a little bit in the shoe, you absolutely can do it. With the Mach 6, you're going out and doing a long, easy run and you want to run a bit quicker in it, it definitely feels more comfortable to do that. And I do think the focus is on kind of speed. And I think if you wanted to race in a shoe, if I wanted to race in a shoe, a shorter distance race, I would definitely be looking at this shoe over this shoe ultimately. But I think I could probably cruise in a marathon at a pretty kind of nice, comfortable pace in this shoe as well too. I think in terms of other things, outsole, the designs are very similar in terms of what you're getting here. I don't think there's a huge amount in terms of the level of rubber you're getting here, the protection you're getting in these two shoes. For me, I feel like the outsole durability is going to feel very similar. I think gripping, traction has felt very similar for me as well. I think, the biggest or most interesting thing for me has been, what you're going to get from the midsole, how those are going to kind of evolve when you've spent a bit more time running in them. I felt like, I was a bit concerned that with this being the more plusher, softer feeling midsole, would it kind of, feel as good as it did in the first run to the last run I did in it. I have found it's been able to maintain that so far. And I think with the Mach 6, it's definitely going to feel the same. I think where, that midsole is going to hold up well. It's going to give you a similar feeling as, again, from that first run to that last run that I've done. At least that's what I found in my experience. So yeah, I do think these are two daily trainer shoes that I've really enjoyed running in. I do think that this is a shoe that I've preferred running easier in, and I have felt I have been able to run a slightly quicker pace in this shoe. This, absolutely, you can run easy in it as well, but it is more faster focused. Everything in the shoe is telling you it wants to run a little bit quicker, and I think if you're looking for an up-tempo kind of racing feel, but something you can train in, then absolutely, I think that's what you're going to get from the Mach 6.
My verdict then, if you like your ride really soft and super plush with a massive stack, zero road feel, big trampoline ride, you may well love the HOKA Skyward X. I know other testers certainly have, and if you can get on with that kind of ride, it's definitely got lots of happy cruising potential. But if you like your things more direct and controlled, or you need stability, I'd urge caution with this shoe. For me, the Mach 6 delivers a more reliable ride that's a lot lighter, much snappier, and has much more top-end pace, kind of friendliness, though you're getting a lot less of that cushioned plushness. The price is going to be a big factor here too, I think, particularly if you're in the US, where the Skyward X comes in quite a substantial $80 more expensive. And I personally think the Mach 6 offers more versatility overall for the lower price. Running really long and slow, I might choose the Skyward X over the Mach 6, but for everything else, I personally prefer the Mach 6. And if you can go longer in a more direct shoe, you don't need so much cushioning, you're happy with that, it's definitely packing more value for me.
So it's a bit of a clash of styles here with these two HOKA shoes. And I actually think HOKA has executed both of these shoes quite well to work for different people. Like if you do like a lightweight, simple daily trainer with cushioning and comfort, but has a nimble feel if you're going to try and up the pace, the Mach 6 is one of the best around in that category. And if you want to go all out for a super trainer with a really bouncy ride and a plate and a big high stack of protective cushioning, Skyward X I think is one of the best shoes in that category as well. Like it is a really good shoe. It's done really well. It's very fun and comfortable to run at easy paces. It's not particularly versatile for me. I didn't really enjoy going at fast paces in it. I certainly think the Mach 6 is the more versatile shoe if you're looking for a do-it-all shoe. But for long runs, easy runs, the Skyward X does give you a really great experience. Personally, I prefer the feeling of the Mach 6. I like a lightweight shoe like this. I like the natural feel it has on the run. As a runner with a high cadence, I like that it's easy to turn my feet over in this shoe. Skyward X is fun. I enjoyed using it, but it's not the kind of shoe I'd pick out and put in my rotation. I just prefer the feel of a shoe like the Mach 6. The converse will be true for lots of people. If you do like that big, bouncy, very cushioned feeling, the Skyward X is a really good shoe. Obviously, you're going to have to pay a lot more for it. That's the other big advantage to the Mach 6. It's a much cheaper shoe, simpler shoe, cheaper shoe, and that is another feather in its cap, and one that would entice me to look at it as well. But you know, the Skyward X is in this super trainer category. It's competing against other very expensive shoes, and it does stand up very well against them. If you like that big bouncy feeling, the Skyward X will deliver it. You will enjoy the shoe. Mach 6 is my preference though, as a nice, simple, lightweight, or do-it-all shoe.
So my take on the Skyward X and the Mach 6 is that I have loved running in both of these shoes. These are very good daily trainer shoes in very different ways. I think if you are looking for a daily trainer shoe that gives you that kind of plush feeling, comfort over longer distances, and can maybe allow you to run a little bit quicker in, then I think the Skyward X can absolutely do that for you. I think if you're looking for the daily trainer that is lighter, feels faster, can still go and do those kind of longer training runs as well too, and is cheaper as well, then I would be going for the Mach 6. Now, if I had to pick, and I'm kind of thinking about from a pricing point of view, I would be going for the Mach 6. I do think it can give you or offer, you know, a similar feeling or a good feeling over the same types of runs that probably I would use this shoe for. If I was looking for a really comfortable, slow, long, easy run shoe, and that's my main focus, that is what I would be going for. I would be going for the Skyward X. But from a value point of view, and for the versatility, I would say go for the Mach 6. If you're looking for something that's going to really give you that comfort over those longer runs at slightly slower paces, then I would be going for the Skyward X.
So there you have it. That's our head-to-head between the HOKA Mach 6 and the Skyward X. We hope you found it helpful. If you have any questions, hit us up in the comments below. If you've run in either of both these shoes, let us know how you got on with them. Don't forget to like and subscribe and ring the bell for more great Run Testers videos when they land. If you want a full review of both these shoes, those videos are going to appear on the channel right about now. Otherwise, thanks as ever for watching, and we hope to see you again soon on the Run Testers, and happy running, people.